Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance. The first one is titled, "My wife's friend moved into our house without asking. I had him evicted." Before I get into the chaos that unfolded in our home, let me give you some background about how Yana and I got here. Maybe it'll help explain why what happened hit us so hard and nearly broke our marriage. I met Yana 6 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was helping our host in the kitchen, making sure everyone had drinks and food, all while keeping up animated conversations with 3 different people. I remember thinking, wow, she really cares about making others happy. I'm more of an introvert, preferring smaller gatherings and quiet evenings at home. That day, I was actually planning to leave early until Yana sat down next to me and started chatting about the book I was reading. 3 hours later, we were still talking, long after most guests had left. Our relationship moved quickly after that. We moved in together within a year, got married 6 months later, and bought our house 2 years ago. Yana turned our home into this warm, welcoming space where friends and family love to gather. I adjusted to having more social activities than I was used to because seeing her happy made me happy. But there were signs of potential issues from the start. Yana had a habit of saying yes to everyone who needed help, often at her own expense. She'd stay late at school helping struggling students, volunteer for every charity event, and drop everything if a friend called with a problem. I admired her giving nature, but worried she was stretching herself too thin. "You can't save everyone," I'd tell her gently when she'd come home exhausted after helping a colleague move on her only day off. "I know," she'd say, "but if I can help, shouldn't I?" We had several conversations about boundaries over the years, like the time she lent her cousin $3,000 for emergency car repairs without discussing it with me first. The money, as I'd suspected, went to her cousin's vacation fund instead. Yana was devastated by the betrayal, but still made excuses for her cousin's behavior. "She's family, Kevin. She's just going through a rough patch." That phrase, "going through a rough patch," became a red flag for me. It seemed to be Yana's go-to justification whenever someone took advantage of her kindness. Then there was the incident with her co-worker who crashed on our couch for just a few days after a breakup. Those few days turned into 3 weeks of said co-worker monopolizing our living room, eating our food, and treating Yana like her personal therapist. I finally had to be the bad guy and tell her it was time to leave, which caused our first serious fight as a married couple. "You don't understand what it's like to feel helpless and alone," Yana had said tearfully during that argument. But she was wrong. I did understand. Yana rarely talked about her past, but I knew she'd had a rough time in college. Her parents went through a messy divorce during her sophomore year, and she spent several months couch surfing because she couldn't afford housing after her dad stopped paying her rent. That experience left her with a deep empathy for people in difficult situations, but also a blind spot when it came to distinguishing between those truly in need and those who were just taking advantage. We worked through these issues in our early marriage counseling sessions. Yana agreed to consult me before making major decisions that affected our household, and I worked on being more understanding of her desire to help others. We thought we'd found a good balance. Then Jim showed up. I'd heard stories about Jim over the years. He was part of Yana's college friend group, the one who always seemed to be at the center of drama, but somehow came out smelling like roses. Yana had mentioned him helping her through her parents' divorce, letting her stay at his place when she was struggling. But she'd also let slip comments about his tendency to borrow money and never pay it back, or how he'd mysteriously fallen out with several mutual friends. "He's just misunderstood," she'd say whenever I pointed out these red flags. "People don't see his good heart. I should have paid more attention to those warning signs. Should have noticed how Yana would get defensive whenever anyone criticized Jim, how she'd brush off stories about his less than honest behavior with old friends." Looking back, I realized Jim had an emotional hold over her from their college days, a debt of gratitude she felt she could never fully repay. That's why, when I came home from my business trip that Thursday evening and found a stranger's belongings in our guest room, I knew we were in for more than just a temporary house guest situation. What I didn't realize was how this incident would force us to finally address the underlying issues in our marriage and help Yana break free from toxic patterns that had been holding her back for years. To sum it up, I'm Kevin, 34, and I work as a sales manager for a medical equipment company. My wife, Yana, 32, is an elementary school teacher. We've been married for 5 years and bought our modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs 2 years ago. We had a pretty solid relationship, or so I thought, until her old college friend Jim decided to make himself at home without my knowledge or consent. That Thursday evening, I was exhausted from delayed flights and just wanted to collapse into bed. When I pulled into our driveway around 8 p.m., I noticed an unfamiliar, beat-up Honda Civic parked in front of our house. Thinking it belonged to one of the neighbor's visitors, I didn't give it much thought. The first red flag came when I opened our front door and heard male laughter coming from the kitchen, mixed with Yana's voice. We don't usually have guests over on weeknights, especially not this late. "Honey, I'm home," I called out, dragging my suitcase inside. Yana emerged from the kitchen, looking slightly nervous. "Kevin, welcome back." She gave me a quick hug. "How was your trip?" Before I could answer, a tall guy with a scruffy beard and wearing a wrinkled t-shirt appeared behind her. "Hey man, you must be Kevin. I'm Jim. Yana's told me so much about you." I stood there confused. Yana had mentioned Jim a few times. They'd been friends in college, and he'd recently moved to our city for a job opportunity. But this was the first time I was meeting him, and something felt off about the situation. "Nice to meet you," I said politely, though my internal alarm bells were ringing. "Having a late dinner?" "Oh yeah, Yana made her famous lasagna," Jim replied, far too comfortable for someone I'd just met. "It's been great catching up these past few days." "Past few days?" I looked at Yana questioningly. She cleared her throat. Honey, can we talk in the bedroom for a minute?" Once we were alone, Yana started talking fast. "Okay, don't be mad, but Jim needed a place to stay temporarily. His job fell through, and his landlord sold his building with barely any notice. He's been sleeping in the guest room while looking for a new place." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Wait, what? How long has he been here?" Yana wouldn't meet my eyes. "About 5 days. He showed up Saturday morning after you left for your trip. He was desperate, Kevin. I couldn't just leave him homeless." "And you didn't think to call and discuss this with me first?" I tried to keep my voice level, but I was furious. "You just moved a stranger into our house without asking?" "He's not a stranger. I've known him for years." "I've never met him before tonight, and that's beside the point. This is a decision we should have made together. How long is he planning to stay?" Yana shifted uncomfortably. "Just until he finds a new job and gets back on his feet. A few weeks, maybe." "Maybe? So there's no actual plan?" I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. "Yana, this is completely inappropriate. We need to set a firm move-out date." "Can we discuss this tomorrow? You must be tired from your trip, and it's getting late." I didn't sleep well that night, my mind racing with concerns. The next morning, I got up early and found Jim in our kitchen, helping himself to coffee and scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. "Morning," I said curtly, grabbing my own mug. "We need to talk about your living situation." He barely glanced up. "Oh yeah, Yana mentioned you might be weird about it. Don't worry, man, I'll be out of your hair as soon as I land a new gig." His dismissive attitude made my blood boil. "That's not good enough. We need a specific timeline and some ground rules." Jim finally looked at me, his expression annoyed. "Look, I get that you're trying to establish dominance or whatever, but Yana already said I could stay. Maybe talk to your wife if you have issues?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "This is my house too, and I have every right to know who's living in it. What exactly is your plan for finding work?" He shrugged. "I've got some applications out there. The job market's tough right now." "What field are you looking in?" "Oh, various things. I'm keeping my options open." Over the next few days, I observed Jim's routine or lack thereof. He slept until noon, spent hours gaming on his laptop, and seemed to do very little actual job hunting. He was also making himself way too comfortable, using our streaming accounts, eating our food, even wearing my shower shoes. I tried talking to Yana about it several times, but she kept defending him. "He's going through a rough patch," she'd say. "We can't just throw him out on the street." "I'm not suggesting that," I'd counter. "But we need boundaries and a clear exit plan." Things came to a head when I came home early one afternoon to find Jim hosting 2 friends in our living room, all of them drinking our beer and playing video games at full volume. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. Jim barely looked up from his game. "Just having some bros over. Yana said it was cool." "Yana's at work, and this is not cool with me." I was done being polite. "You need to tell your friends to leave, now." One of his friends snickered. "Dude, your roommate's kind of uptight." "He's not my roommate," I snapped. "This is my house, and he's an unwanted guest who's overstayed his welcome." That got their attention. Jim paused the game and stood up, trying to use his height to intimidate me. "What's your problem, man? Yana said I could stay here?" "Yana is not the only owner of this house," I said firmly, "and I never agreed to this arrangement. Your friends need to leave immediately, and you and I need to discuss your departure date." "Or what?" Jim sneered. You gonna call the cops on your wife's friend? If necessary, yes. But first, I'll be serving you with formal eviction papers. That wiped the smirk off his face. You can't evict me. I have tenants' rights. Actually, you don't, I replied, thankful for the research I'd done over the past few days. You've never paid rent, there's no lease agreement, and you've been here less than 30 days. In this state, that makes you a guest, not a tenant. But if you'd like to test that theory in court, I'm happy to let a judge decide. His friends awkwardly gathered their things and left, while Jim stormed off to the guest room, slamming the door like a teenager. When Yana got home, we had our biggest fight in 5 years of marriage. I can't believe you threatened to evict Jim, she yelled. He's my friend. A friend who's taking advantage of your kindness, I shot back. He's not even seriously looking for work, Yana. He's treating our house like a free hotel and you're letting him... You don't know what he's going through. No, I don't, because no one bothered to tell me anything before he moved in. What happened to us being a team? Making decisions together? I made a judgment call when a friend needed help. And how long are we supposed to help? A month? A year? Forever? Because right now he has zero incentive to leave. The argument went in circles until Yana finally broke down crying. I felt like I owed him, she admitted. In college, when I was going through that rough breakup with my boyfriend, Jim let me crash on his couch for 2 weeks. He took care of me when I was a mess. I softened slightly. I understand wanting to help a friend who helped you, but this is different, Yana. We're married now. These decisions affect both of us. And from what I've seen, Jim isn't actively trying to improve his situation. We talked late into the night, finally agreeing that we needed to set firm boundaries. The next morning, we sat down with Jim for a serious conversation. You have 2 weeks to find alternative accommodation, I told him. During that time, you need to actively job hunt and follow some basic house rules. No guests without permission. No using our stuff without asking. And you need to contribute to groceries. Jim tried to argue, but Yana backed me up this time. This is more than fair, Jim. We're happy to help you transition, but you need to show us you're making an effort. Instead of accepting these reasonable terms, Jim showed his true colors. He spent the next few days making passive-aggressive comments, deliberately being noisy late at night, and telling Yana I was controlling her. The final straw came when I discovered he'd been using my credit card number, which he must have gotten from our Amazon account, to order food delivery. When confronted, he claimed Yana had given him permission, another lie that finally opened her eyes to his manipulative behavior. That's when I contacted a lawyer and had formal eviction papers drawn up. Even though Jim technically didn't have tenants' rights, I wanted everything done legally and properly. The day I served him the papers, he tried to play the victim one last time. I thought we were friends, he said to Yana. Are you really going to let him do this to me? Yana stood firm. No, Jim. We're doing this to ourselves, setting healthy boundaries and protecting our marriage. You've taken advantage of our hospitality and broken our trust. He turned nasty then, calling Yana ungrateful and me controlling. But with the threat of legal action looming, he finally packed his bags and left 3 days later. The aftermath wasn't pretty. Some mutual friends took Jim's side when he spread his version of events on social media, painting us as heartless rich people who threw a struggling friend into the street. But others reached out to share similar stories about Jim's pattern of taking advantage of people's kindness. The whole ordeal put a strain on our marriage, but ultimately made it stronger. We started couples therapy to work on our communication and boundary setting. Yana realized she had a tendency to let people take advantage of her giving nature, while I learned to express my concerns more constructively. During one therapy session, Yana had a breakthrough about her relationship with Jim. I always felt like I owed him something, she admitted. But looking back, he was manipulative even in college. He'd help people, but then hold it over their heads forever. I let that old guilt cloud my judgment. Our therapist helped us establish better protocols for making major decisions together. We also created clear guidelines for hosting guests, including maximum stay durations and expectations for behavior. 6 months later, we heard through mutual friends that Jim had pulled the same stunt with another college acquaintance, moving in temporarily and refusing to leave. This time, though, he tried it with someone who worked in real estate law and was much less patient than we had been. The experience taught us valuable lessons about boundaries, communication, and the importance of protecting our home and marriage. We still help friends in need, but now we do it as a team, with clear expectations and time limits. Last week, Yana ran into Jim at a coffee shop. He tried to act friendly, as if nothing had happened. "Hey, stranger," he said. "How've you been? Listen, I'm between places right now." Yana cut him off mid-sentence. "No, Jim, not ever again. Good luck with your housing search." She said the look on his face was priceless. He'd clearly thought he could worm his way back in. "But we've grown stronger from this experience, and our home is now a sanctuary, not a crash pad for manipulative freeloaders." The whole ordeal actually inspired Yana to join in helping a support group for people learning to set boundaries with friends and family. At their monthly meetings, she often shares our story as an example of how helping others shouldn't come at the expense of your own well-being or relationship. As for me, I've become the guy friends consult before letting anyone crash on their couch. My advice is always the same: get everything in writing, set clear expectations, and never let anyone move in without both partners agreeing. Your home is your sanctuary, protect it. We've since redecorated the guest room and use it for actual guests. You know, the kind who respect boundaries and don't try to steal your credit card information. Every now and then, we hear about Jim through the grapevine, still couch surfing and burning bridges. But that's no longer our problem. Our marriage is stronger than ever, built on a foundation of mutual respect, clear communication, and firm boundaries. Sometimes it takes a crisis to teach you what's truly important in a relationship. For us, it took an unwanted house guest to show us the value of standing united and protecting our peace. Looking back, I don't regret serving those eviction papers. Sometimes being the bad guy who enforces boundaries is exactly what a situation needs. And if sharing our story helps even one couple avoid the same mistake, then some good came from those chaotic few months of our lives. The lesson we learned: your home is more than just a physical space. It's the foundation of your relationship. Protect it at all costs, even if that means making tough decisions and standing firm against those who would take advantage of your kindness. And always, always change your Amazon password after an unwanted house guest leaves. Here are my thoughts about the story. What really got me, though, wasn't just Jim being a professional couch surfer. It was watching this whole situation expose those tiny cracks in what seemed like a solid marriage. You know those moments where you're like, "Honey, I love you, but what the actual hell were you thinking?" Yeah, this story is full of those. The way Kevin handled it was nothing less than phenomenal, beautiful. My man did his homework, kept his cool, mostly, and didn't just go fully nuclear, even though I bet he wanted to throw Jim's gaming setup right out the window. Especially after finding out about the credit card thing, I would have lost my mind. Using someone's card for delivery food? That's not just crossing a line, that's taking a flying leap over it while giving everyone the middle finger. But here's what really stuck with me: Yana's background story. That college experience of couch surfing during her parents' divorce, that hit hard. When you've been in that vulnerable position, it messes with your head. You end up feeling like you owe the world to anyone who helped you during those dark times. Jim knew exactly what buttons to push, and he played Yana like a fiddle. Classic manipulator move, holding past kindness over someone's head like it's a lifetime get-out-of-jail-free card. And can we talk about Jim's audacity for a second? Bringing his bros over to drink someone else's beer and play video games like he's living in a frat house? My dude, you're a grown man. The secondhand embarrassment was real. But the best part? When he ran into Yana at the coffee shop and tried to pull the same stunt again? The audacity this man has. The thing that makes this story so satisfying isn't just Jim getting the boot. It's watching this couple grow stronger through all this mess. They could have let this tank their marriage. Instead, they got their butts to therapy, learned to set boundaries, and came out swinging. That's the real victory here. Also, props to Yana for that coffee shop shutdown. No, Jim, not ever again. Straight up boss move. No drama, no arguing, just pure "we're done here" energy. Love to see it. One thing that keeps bugging me, though: how many other Jims are out there floating from couch to couch, living off the guilt and goodwill of old college friends? Like, is there some secret society of professional moochers sharing tips and tricks? Top 10 ways to convince your friends they owe you indefinite free housing? The biggest takeaway for me? Change your damn passwords, people! And maybe don't let your spouse make big decisions about long-term house guests while you're away on business. Just saying. And if they do, it's clearly time for a conversation. But anyways, guys, with this, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like the video/comment if you enjoyed it. I'll see you again tomorrow.